everyone, the Snowman here, and today I prepared a tennis informational video explaining how the rankings points are structured throughout tournaments on the ATP and WTA Tours. We'll answer questions like which annual tournaments dole out the most rankings points, how many points does a player receive for, say, making a Grand Slam final. Just going to try to make some sense of the ranking system and the point distribution for various tennis tournaments throughout the year. And before we look at the different tournament levels on both the ATP and WTA Tours, a quick reminder about tennis rankings. The rankings are a merit-based method used by the ATP and WTA to determine qualification for entry along with the seeding of players in all tournaments. Ranking points are awarded at each tournament according to the stage of the tournament a player reaches and the prestige of said event. The rankings are updated every Monday throughout the year, and points are dropped 52 weeks after being awarded. So a player's ranking is usually just a 12-month snapshot reflecting how a player has performed in the past year. This is how the hierarchy of tournaments has been structured on the men's side of things since 2009. So our x-axis from left to right is measuring the stage a player reaches at a given event. W means they won the entire tournament. F means they made the final. SF is semifinal, then quarterfinal, round of 16, 32, 64, and 128. We also have Q, which deals with the qualifiers of each event. Then on the y-axis from top to bottom, we have the different levels of tournaments. How prestigious is each event? For men's tennis, there are 5 main levels. Number 1, nothing is bigger than the Grand Slams or the majors. We have 4 of them throughout the year: the Aussie Open, Roland Garros, Wimbledon, and the US Open. As you can see in parentheses, 128 players for the singles field at each Grand Slam, 64 for the doubles just below it. So if you win a Grand Slam title, you receive 2,000 rankings points. Those points will stay with you until a year passes and that same major is played again. For example, Novak Djokovic won the 2021 Australian Open. That gave him 2,000 points. The finalist, Daniil Medvedev, received 1,200 points for his overall ranking for reaching that Grand Slam final. Grand Slam semifinalists still pick up a massive haul in the form of 720 points. And you can see down the line 360, 180, 90, etc. The 4 annual Grand Slams will always dole out the most overall points and prize money for that matter too. That's why it's so important for players to perform at their peak during the majors. The second highest tier of ATP tournaments is the ATP Finals, which is the final tournament of the season, taking place between the 8 best singles players throughout the year as well as the 8 best doubles pairings. If you win the ATP Finals, you can acquire 1,500 rankings points, so not quite as much as a Grand Slam, but still a ton to gain at the ATP Finals. The third level is the Masters 1000 events. There are typically 9 Masters 1000s throughout the year: Indian Wells, Miami, Monte Carlo, Madrid, Rome, Canada, Cincinnati, Shanghai, and Paris. And some of these Masters 1000 level events are bigger than others. As you can see in the table, some like Indian Wells are 96-player singles fields, and some like Madrid are just a 56-player draw. Regardless of that, a player receives an appropriate 1,000 points for winning a Masters 1000 title, 600 points for making the final, and then down on the line. Then we get to the 4th tier, which are the ATP 500 level events. There's usually around 13 500 level tournaments in a typical year. Some of those include Rotterdam, Acapulco, Barcelona, Halle, Hamburg, and plenty more. If a player wins a 500 tournament, they pick up, you guessed it, 500 points. And it's interesting to look at the table because you can see making the semifinals of a 500 is basically the same as making the quarters of a Masters 1000 or the round of 16 at a major. They all award 180 points. Finally, we get to the 5th main grouping of ATP tournaments, the 250 events. There's about 40 of these spread out throughout the season. Certainly not as prestigious, not as much money come with participating in the 250 tournaments, but the best players in the world still play their fair share of 250s every year. Obviously, 250 points are on the line if you win a 250, 150 for making the final, and so on. 250s are the smallest tour level event. We also have kind of the minor leagues below them, challenger events, and futures. And one other type of tournament that awards points on the ATP side is the ATP Cup. That's a relatively newer team tournament that takes place at the start of each season. Players can also pick up some rankings points by playing well at the ATP Cup. All right, moving over to the WTA, I'm not going to spend as much time breaking down this table because a lot of the women's tournament structure structure is extremely similar to the men's game. They have 5 main tiers, just like the men. The WTA used to have a more convoluted system using terms like Premier Mandatory, Premier International, but since 2021, they've simplified it like the men and adopted the 1,500-250 arrangement. So for the women, the most prestigious events are still the 4 Grand Slams. Again, Aussie Open, French, Wimbledon, and US Open award the most points. 2,000 for the winner. The WTA does give out a bit more points for the other stages in the majors compared to the ATP. For example, the finalist receives 1,300 for making a Grand Slam final. That was only 1,200 for the men. Similarly to the ATP, the WTA has their own year-end finals as their second highest tier. The champion of the WTA finals can win up to 1,500 points from that event. Now, there is a slight difference with the third tier for the WTA. They actually break up the 9 1,000 events, so 4 of them are technically worth a little bit more. Those mandatory 4 WTA 1000s are Indian Wells, Miami, Madrid, and Beijing. Those 4 tournaments are the ones you see shaded in purple. 1,000 ranking points for winning, 650 for making the final, 390 for the semis, and so on. And then still consider WTA 1000 events. We have the 5 other 1000s which aren't mandatory. Those are Dubai, Rome, Canada, Cincinnati, and Wuhan. Just a smidge less points given out at those 5 WTA 1000s. You can see in silver, if you win one of those, you only receive 900 points as opposed to 1,000, but not really too big a difference there in the grand scheme of things. Same with the 4th tier as the men. The WTA has about 12 or 13 500 level events per year. They give out 470 points for a champion, 305 for a finalist. And the 5th tournament tier on the WTA, the 250s, there's about 32 of them every season. They give out a little bit more than the ATP 250s, 280 points for the champ of a WTA 250. And then finally, the WTA Elite Trophy is kind of similar to the year-end finals. It's only been around since 2015. That's another one-off kind of event where players can earn points as well. So just to quickly recap on both the ATP and WTA Tours, there's essentially 5 main tournament levels. You have the 4 Grand Slams, which give out the most points, the most prize money. You also have the year-end finals at number 2, and then the 1,000 level events, 500 and 250. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Learned something about tennis tournaments on both the ATP and WTA Tours. If you did, please subscribe to the Snowman Sports Media for more tennis content. I'll be back real soon. Cheers.